We are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Aloni. I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media company in the New York metro area. We publish over 70 newspapers, magazines, websites, webinars, podcasts, and events. And we do so throughout Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Westchester, Long Island, the East End, and Philadelphia. Today, we're thrilled to bring you the webinar, Cybersecurity for Business, learning actionable and easy to understand lessons. Many people are concerned about cybersecurity for their business and how this threat can impact their businesses, perhaps even destroy their businesses. So today we're joined by Steve Conyers, CEO of CMIT Solutions of Brooklyn North, who will provide us with a simplified way to think about protecting your business without all the jargon. And he'll demonstrate how business owners can determine where they should spend their time and energy. Welcome, Steve. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Elizabeth, for that warm introduction. I opened CMIT Brooklyn 11 years ago after spending about 20 years doing quantitative and analytical programming on Wall Street. And on Wall Street, I dealt with audits and security issues and responding to investigations and things like that. And since I opened CMIT Brooklyn, I've had a strong focus on cybersecurity and regulatory compliance. CMIT is a national franchise system, and we have resources throughout North America, and that helps us to get resources to every size business.
So critical because everyone hears about these stories every single day, and it's a true concern. So having experts to be able to walk you through this is so important. So let's get started with what we should be aware of in regard to cyber threats.
Okay, so as you can see on the slide, there are two typical threats to small businesses, and those come from ransomware, which many of you have probably heard, and targeted attacks. First, on the ransomware, basically a hacker will somehow get into your system, usually through making a user click on something they shouldn't click, and then encrypting your data. And by encrypting your data, they hold it ransom and ask for payment to restore your data. This has happened, you hear about it in the news all the time with large companies. There was a large law firm that was breached. There were municipalities. Baltimore was down for a long time, hospitals on the West Coast. But what you may not know is that you're just not hearing about the frequency in small businesses. On a targeted attacks, it's basically, they get in the same way. They try to get into your system somehow, but then instead of encrypting your data, the hackers are watching to see what type of business you're in and what kind of information you have. And they're either stealing your data or using your resources, like turning your computer into a bot that then is used to target other businesses. Or they're waiting for something, a high payoff activity. One example I'll share with you is a law firm that was there. They had someone inside their system watching their email. They sent out an email to a client. This is a real estate law firm that, they'd be on the alert. They would be sending the bank account information to send the down payment on a real estate transaction of 20%. It was a $10 million transaction, so it was $2 million. And the hacker immediately sent the email to the recipient with their own bank information and was able to steal $2 million. So those kind of things happen. So, on the targeted attacks, hackers are usually in your system for 9 months before anybody even realizes they're there.
Incredible. That photo, I think, is so telling. Who's there? I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's this like mysterious thief.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. This photo makes it look like it's like a highly technical, super smart person who's doing it. But in actuality, you can go online and buy a kit and just run the kit against an email list and you share any money that you get with the criminal enterprises that have provided the kit for you. So this doesn't take a lot of expertise to do these.
Unbelievable. That's what we need. We need companies like yours with the expertise. Next slide.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I
Oh,
shared. I just shared the next
yeah,
slide.
so there is a framework. So this can be daunting. There's so much going on. You hear about so many things, and you wonder where to start. So there is a framework that you can use. This is a little bit more complicated. I'll get into a simplified version of this, but where you go through systematically and you identify what you have and how you're going to protect it, how you might detect if there's some anomalous activity, and how you would respond and how you would recover. But if we can go to the next slide.
Yes. I do want to say, one question that I had that came to mind, I think a lot of small business owners would wonder is, why would anyone want my data? I understand why they would want it for a huge firm, but why is for a small business?
Well, for a small business, one thing is that you may not think the data is valuable to a hacker, but almost every business, the core asset that they have is data about them, their customers. And if you didn't have access to your data, what could you function? If you could function and you don't have any reputational data, then your risk is kind of minimal. But if you can't send out emails to your clients and try to engage them and get more business from them, or if their data is sensitive and now you've been the person who's let it out, it's valuable. So it's more valuable to you. So in the ransomware attack, it's valuable to you and they deny you from having the data. A lot of businesses can't run without their data, and that's why you would pay for it. It's really not valuable to the hacker at all. On the second one that I went through before, it is valuable. But if we could go back to the slide on the house and stuff, I can go through
Yeah,
this.
you're so great at making this very understandable, and you have a wonderful way of doing so in, in easy terms. So let's.
Okay. So what I'd like you to think about is we're all familiar with our house or our apartment or something similar, even our physical business. And we understand some ways that we would protect it. So when I talked about identify what you want to protect and if there's something valuable in there. Usually, for a house, it's your family and your pets. You might own something very valuable that people might know about, and or have documents and things like that. Your basic protection will be doors, locks on the doors, locks on your windows. You educate your children not to open the door without knowing who's on the other side. And you may have a yard sign that you're protected by a security firm. If you're going to the next step of detection, you'll have an alarm so that if someone goes inside your house, you'll sense it and you'll get an alarm. That can include motion sensors. You can have a doorbell camera, that kind of stuff. Even a neighborhood watch where people are going around looking for suspicious activity. And then you have a response it could be as simple as your dog barking, scaring away somebody. You have insurance to cover any losses. The police will be notified and will come. And you might even just have a baseball bat that you can wheel standing by the door. And after everything's happened, you'll want to recover. So you'll just, basically that involves insurance and restoring any lost or damaged things in your house. So everything I said is sort of on the next slide. So, be happy to share this with anyone afterwards. So now you've got that concept of what you would do. for your personal belongings and your family and your house. So think of your business as a house, or a house maybe in the cloud, right? That's accessible from other areas. And you can go through this same 5-point exercise. And if we go on to the next slide, I can bring it into businesses.
Cybersecurity, fabulous. Yes,
Okay,
walk us through that, please.
okay. So the analogous for identity is to look at your business with a critical, objective eye and see what is most important to your business. So business records, employee data, a lot of it is client and business plans, your client data. And you can protect that by using protective technology and data security. The number one thing is probably awareness and training of your employees. And on the detection front, there are tools that you can use that are analogous to motion sensors that can see data moving around your business in a way that is unusual, and and alert you that, typically you're not dealing with anybody in Eastern Europe, but somehow there's data being moved from one computer to another and then going out to a country that, you're suspicious of.
Now, are those programs that you help people install in their systems so that it'll automatically, or is this more something where it's personally manned?
It's a combination. Through technology, you run some sensors on your network that can do the analysis, and through machine learning and artificial intelligence, they're constantly learning what is an unusual behavior. And then in our situation, that anything that looks like it's suspicious gets flagged to a security operations center that is manned. And someone looks at that, and then, because sometimes you still get false positives in there. And then if something needs attention, it gets alerted to me or to the business owner to take action.
Got it. And then you plan your response to it, to each of
Yes.
these
The important
things.
thing is to not plan your response after your attack, but to have something in place that you know what to do, so you're covering all your bases when or if you have it. So you have to know who you're going to communicate with and to. You're going to want to be able to analyze. A lot of insurance companies require you to, be able to show a trail of how the event happened. And you want to immediately stop the intrusion at whatever loss that you have at that point. That's the mitigation. You want to stop it once you've detected it.
So all these things are very important to think about ahead of time, because if you can be prepared, you can stop some of the threats. And then also, if it gets beyond that, you're able to stop the damage.
Right,
And
you're not thinking
yeah,
in crisis mode with adrenaline and your heart racing. What do I have to do? You've already pre-thought out these steps that you have to do. So
it's
just a very, simple example is if you get a virus, the first thing you should do is disconnect your computer from the network. A lot of people know that already. So then at least, you're not spreading it across your network. So things like that, you should have a plan in place.
I love the analogy of the home, because we're so aware of what we need to do for our home. And we're so aware that we need to, put in all the alarms and the protections to let us know. And then, all the other things like the insurance to help us if a break-in, for example, does happen, whether it be home insurance, fire insurance. But with our businesses, sometimes we aren't as savvy with that in terms of our cyber technology. And in today, that's as a bigger threat really than theft, than physical theft in your office.
Yes, and the other thing to highlight about the house analogy is every business is different. Because I'm listing all of these things doesn't mean you have to do every single one to the same level. It's just important that you spend some time up front thinking about all these things so you know where to spend your money. You don't just want to throw money at things that are not important to you. So to the analogy of the house, if you have, jewelry that's very expensive, you're going to protect it. But, if you don't, then you may not need motion sensors and fire alarms and all that. You just need to have the protections that you need to protect what you have.
That's a really good point, because as a business owner, I might not be able to protect myself against every threat that's out there. So how does one know where is best to spend one's money to protect against these threats?
So the first thing you do is you do an assessment. So there's there's a NIST framework, which is a National Institute of Standards, and it basically someone like me typically would assist you in that, where you go through a very structured look at your business. And it's important to know that cybersecurity includes more than just the electronic gadgets. There are physical ways to get into it covers physical protection of your business as well, because that's one entry point into your electronic data, things like that. So you just do an assessment. The assessment goes through all of these points, and basically you, the business owner, indicate what is important to you. And then the assessment ranks the risk of something happening and the importance to your business, and that gets bubbled up to the top. So you might have 3 or 4 things that you need to do that are really should be done right away. And then you have a list of things that are nice to do, dependent upon your perception of your risk and how much you want to pay to lower the risk. You can never get rid of the risk completely. Right? That's where insurance comes in. There's a gap of what you can protect, and then you need the insurance to help you through the rest of it if it happens.
Absolutely. So the first step is really an analysis of your business, seeing where your vulnerabilities are, and
Right.
then determining where can I manage those vulnerabilities to the best of my ability with my budget, and then where do I need to use insurance to bridge that gap.
That's right. And another important thing about insurance is people may think that they're covered, but there's been a pullback by insurance companies, or a separation of cybersecurity from your general business insurance. And some of these steps that you would be taking to protect yourself are required by your cybersecurity to get the full protection. So you should talk to your insurance agent and make sure you understand what is covered and what is not covered.
It takes a village, a little bit of a village, to be able to make
Yeah,
sure that you have it. But it's certainly the first step is to work with cybersecurity experts. So, often I hear about a dark web scan. Can you share what this is and what its value is?
yeah. A dark web scan is basically taking your business identity, so like CMIT for me, and actually trying to buy information on the dark web. And all the dark web means is it's like the black market of information for cybersecurity criminals. And so when I did CMIT Brooklyn and I did a scan of what I could purchase on the dark web, you find out what emails may have been compromised, what passwords are available for sale, things like that. It gives you an idea of whether or not you've ever been breached in the past, and whether you should be doing something about it going forward.
Now, I can't
And
do www.darkweb.com, right? I mean, it's a little more
no, it's
complicated.
a little more complicated. For anyone who's interested on this call, if you reach out to me, we'll do a dark web scan on your company and give you some information about that.
Well,
What emails and passwords might have been compromised in the past.
thank you for that. I'm going to share your contact information with everyone. That's very helpful, because that really sounds like a nice place to start, just kind of know where you're already vulnerable, as a first step to see what's already out there. And I'm sure everyone will be surprised to see how much there already is out there currently. So you're the expert, and there's so many of these concerns. Can you tell us a little bit about CMIT and what your approach is with working with companies? I mean, you already shared that you're going to do a dark web scan for our attendees, but if someone was coming to you, a business coming to you, what is your approach, and how do you work with your clients?
We're a very consultative approach. What we try to do is understand your business and work with you to go through this assessment of where your vulnerabilities and your, the data that you need to protect resides. We're a national company. We have a focus on cybersecurity. We have partners like Privacy Pro who stay on top of all the regulations. So if you're a regulated entity like in the finance fields or in the medical fields, we stay on top of all the regulations. And all of our vendors are vetted for cybersecurity protection and things like that. But our approach is to meet with you, sit down, go through a series of questions about your business and how you operate your business, what your risks are, what you value, the things that we've been talking about, and then come up with a score and an action plan for what you might need to do to lower your risk from or the impact of the cybersecurity.
The best next step is really to reach out, and actually I shared all your contact information in the chat, is to reach out and schedule this opportunity to go over your dark web scan,
Right.
see what is already out there and being manipulated, and then go over with you and your team about what are the key threats to my business, and then come up with an action plan on how to solve those things.
Right. Then that first meeting, I can explain a little bit more what we would do, so you don't have to take that whole shebang. We'll do the dark web scan, and then explain maybe in a little more detail how the house applies to your particular business, and what regulations might or might not apply, how an insurance company might look at your profile and what they might require you to do before, to lower your insurance premium, things like that.
So you can even advise clients when it comes to what they need to do to prepare themselves to dealing with insurance.
Yes, we're not insurance agents, but we can help. I just went personally. My business went through a cybersecurity audit to renew my cyber insurance, and it's daunting even for technology companies. So I imagine if you're confronted with that, we're a good resource for you to keep in mind.
Perfect. So are there particular industries that are more likely to experience a cyber threat?
In I'll say no, but there'll be some industries that are much more vulnerable to, it'll impact them more. The reason I say no is because it's a scattershot approach. People just send out billions of emails, and then whoever clicks through and they get in, they'll encrypt your data if they can. But that's not going to impact everybody equally. So anybody who's dealing with personally identifiable information, which there have been a lot of laws about now. So if you deal with any personal information from Europe, you're under the European data protection laws. Most states have passed laws on that now. So those are obvious if you're on the consumer-facing side. If you're like in the healthcare industry or the finance industry, there are very specific regulations that you have to follow. It's HIPAA on the medical side, and then there's FINRA and DFARS and all alphabet soup of regulations on the financial side. And then on top of that, you want to think about your reputation. If your reputation is important, you don't want to be identified as the like the target. Everybody talks about the target breach, target breach, target breach. You don't want to be the person who's identified as the source of a major breach.
Right, absolutely. So you help clients with all these different aspects.
Yes.
It's good to know too that it's like really there is no company that can just say, oh, this isn't going to affect me. because, as you said earlier, no matter the size of the company, large, small, we're all very data driven. I mean, I know if I lose my cell phone, I'd pay anything to get it back. So, you think about your business and how vulnerable it can be if you don't have the right security in place. So thank you for that. This has been very informative. And I love the way you talk about the house analogy. I think it makes it really very simple for people to think about it and understand it. But we do have some great questions from our attendees that I'd love to get to, if that's okay with you.
Sure, fine. Far
Sure.
away.
So Yuso said, on average, how many businesses pay ransomware versus finding a solution to the hack?
It used to be people would pay, I don't know the exact percentage,
Uh-huh.
but 3 or 4 years ago, the FBI was saying that's the only way to get your 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 data back. Now, a business that has backed up their data in an appropriate way, and it's just a ransomware attack, they're not regulated, they're not worried about the data leaving their company, because that's a separate risk. So if it's just important to me but not important to anybody else, the best thing you can do is just have a good backup that's not on your network, that's in the cloud through some reputable company. And then you can just wipe your computers, restore your computers, and forget about paying anything. But as we've progressed, there have been more and more cases of people paying ransom, like paying some ransom and then not getting the keys and not being able to restore their data.
Wow. I mean, look, you're vulnerable. These people have you, and there's no requirement for them to give what they say they're going to give. So you're
Yes,
dealing with thieves.
right.
So David wants to know, is a business backing up its data at the end of the day sufficient protection?
And that's a good question. And the answer is it all depends upon what your business is, right? So you can imagine a tax CPA on April 14th of a normal year, where they're going maybe processing hundreds and hundreds of tax returns during that day. They may want a more frequent backup. For most businesses that don't have a lot of growth in their data in one day, that's enough. They just have to repeat whatever they did that day. So you can, but there are some solutions where you can take snapshots every 15 minutes, or you can, just reach it out so that you do it at night, or things like
And
that.
sometimes you realize how much data you are using each day. I mean, again, I'll give you the analogy of the phone, but you think, oh, I didn't back it up for one day, I didn't lose much. And then you really start looking and you realize how much you've done. So from a business perspective, with multiple employees, potentially once a day might
I
not
mean,
be.
it's very specific to the business. A lot of businesses that's sufficient, but the cost is not that great. The difference in cost is not really that much. You do local copies, multiple during the day, and then maybe shoot it off to the cloud at night, so you have a golden copy once a day. The important thing is that you do it properly. So if you have a USB drive connected to your computer and you're doing a backup, that USB drive is on the network, and the ransomware attack will actually, they look for backups and they encrypt the backups. So you have to do it in a way that it's off the network. It's using some backup software, and it's off the network locally, and then it's stored in the cloud off your network, so it can't be reached by the hackers who may get into your system.
We also have another question about, why don't businesses take some of their sensitive data off the internet?
I often thought about that when you hear about the government breaches and things like that. It's such an easy convenience to access the internet, and access your data through the internet. And it's once you're connected, you'd have to do something special to you'd have to run like two networks inside your business to have one network not on the internet and the other one on, and be switching back and forth. But it is a solution. Some some people do that. They have totally sandboxed an environment for their data that is not accessible. But usually there's a reason why you want to look at that data, either from remotely or even internally across the network. So you have to, it's a really special case with a lot of expertise to structure that network correctly. Out of the box, you buy a router, you have a network in your company, it's going to be exposed to the internet.
Charles wants to know, are the Norton and McAfees sufficient?
They're you need them, but they're not. It all depends, right? Once you go through the analysis, what they do is they guard you against known vulnerabilities, and now they've been upgraded to share data across a lot of businesses and do some cloud analysis of current threats. So they are better than nothing. But they're not the motion detector kind of sensors that we're talking about. So if you go through an analysis and you're you feel like you need that level of security, then there are other more advanced tools, so to speak, that will do that analysis for you. So
How business, it seems it's important to at least do an analysis.
that's what I mean, that's what I would recommend. I often use an analogy like sometimes something's keeping you up at night and you don't do any, and it's just something that if you just wrote down what the problem was and that you were going to address it at some point, you'd sleep better. So
Absolutely.
instead of this vague thing that I don't know what's going on, even if you do have some risks, at least you've quantified it, you've written them down, you even if you can't get to it for some period of time, at least you know it there, and it's boxed into a range of possibilities as opposed to being the whole world is going to come to an end.
Yeah, what you don't know can be the most terrifying thing for your business.
Right.
At least if you know what it is and make, decisions about what you're going to do next and how you're going to protect it. I mean, that alone is a tremendous weight off your shoulders and really kind of sitting there and pretending it doesn't exist, because we all hear these stories and we all care about our businesses and we all know that this threat exists. So it weighs on us as business owners. And so it's critical to your peace of mind, not only for your pocketbook, but it's critical for your business to be able to gain knowledge about this.
And then you're also not in reactive mode, just, the last thing you saw on the news. You're actually doing it in a way that has impact on your business.
Absolutely. If something like that hits you, once you know you have this plan in place, you can address it in a much more clear, successful manner than if you're dealing with it and you're scrambling and you're petrified about your business. It's
Right.
much easier to think clear when you have a plan in place.
And it's a lot easier for you to spend money in the right spots, right? That'll have the biggest impact.
Speaking of that, James has a question. He said, this all sounds expensive. Is there a way to protect myself without spending a lot?
Yes, and it all depends. You should always be a cost benefit analysis to this, right? It can be expensive in absolute terms, but the risk to your business can be far greater. And it could be, relatively inexpensive, and but you really have no risk, and it's kind of a waste of spending money as well. So there are a few things I can recommend that you do even before, you do an assessment. Although I strongly suggest that you do. The biggest bang for your buck is going to be in the backup that I talked about, and probably even ahead of that is educating your employees and yourself. That's the first line of defense on what.
That's something that you can help businesses with, because honestly, as in business, I don't even know that I would know how to educate my employees about it.
Yeah, so without a full-blown analysis, we can definitely we have training programs online, and people go and they take a test to make sure that they passed it. We also have things that simulate phishing attacks, which is fairly cost efficient. So by that I mean we send the email to your employees and see if they click on it, and then educate them, and then we send it again, and until you have a confidence that your people are actually being safe. And then we also do backups for people of the type that's off the network, and if their risk is perceived to be only that the data is important to them.
So what else? What else? So you can get started with some of those things, but it sounds to me like whether your budget is small or big for something like this, there are things you can implement to be able to protect yourself. It
Yes.
doesn't have to, James, it doesn't have to be so horribly expensive, that it can be manageable to be able to protect your company.
Right, and it should be proportionate to your business. So, you're not going to spend more than you're making on cybersecurity, right? It has to be a manageable cost relative to the risk that there is to your business. So if there's a lot of money at risk, spending some of that to lessen that risk makes sense.
Is there a percentage that you see, is there a ratio like that, or that doesn't really exist? Like, with revenue at a certain amount, protect.
It's really dependent upon your business, right? So doing the analysis will get you to that point. It's not like you sell 10 times more of a widget, you need 10 times more of a cybersecurity budget.
Right.
So it depends upon how you do business. Typically, it won't scale with your revenue particularly. You might decide to do more things. If it becomes more affordable, you might go down the list of priorities. But
It seems that all roads lead to get an analysis, so
I
you
mean,
know where you stand.
I think it's
What is
it's a
it?
little bit of common sense to know what your risks are. You would do it for almost every other aspect of your business. There's nothing magical about it just because it's technology. If you were buying new technology that was going to improve your workflow, you do an analysis of, how many people, would I not have to pay if I bought this computer? It would be very similar. How much risk do I reduce by doing taking this first big step?
So Leanne said, I have insurance. Why do I need this as well?
So outside, assuming your insurance covers everything, so at first would be to go back and make sure that your insurance covers what it covers, and that it actually will cover you to recover uh, all the expenses that are necessary to recover. But think about your house again, right? If do you have fire insurance because you're going to have a fire and you don't care about matches and smoking and candles and all that kind of stuff? It's not without disruption to your life to have your house burned down, even though you know that you could build it back up. So the same thing is true for cyber insurance, and it's part of the assessment process, right? There may be instances where you only need insurance, right? You don't, but the typical reason that you would do it is time, right? Because you're going to be out of business for a period of time.
Mhm.
And if you want to be lessen your downtime, you need to take some of these steps.
Okay. So David was asking some specifics. Would you require employees to use a two-step authentication, or download patches promptly from their service provider, and creating particular type of passwords? Are these some of the things that you typically recommend?
Yes, yes, it's multi-factor authentication, which I think you were talking about, or
Yeah.
sometimes called two-factor, is the best thing you can do because passwords, no matter how complex, can be broken, or because people tend not to make them very complex. There's something easy to remember, they're easy to crack. So for people who may not know what I'm talking about, multi-factor authentication is where you have a password and then you get prompted for something like a text on your phone or an authenticator app on your phone, and you have to put in a code. So that means it's something you know, which is your password, and something you have, which is your phone. So someone in Russia, or I don't want to pick on Eastern, someone remote from you, who has figured out your password, still can't get into your system because they don't have your phone. So two-factor authentication. I forget what were the other ones you mentioned.
About downloading the patches that the
Definitely, part of the assessment and almost all the regulations around and best practices around cybersecurity is to keep everything patched as practicable. It's a practical thing. All the security, operating systems up to date. Those are the things that are typically, a company like mine will be doing for you, and you can do for yourself. I would turn it on if you're a small business, a solo. Turn on the automatic OS updates and security patches from Microsoft and Apple.
great advice. Thank you. Nisha wanted to know: are there greater risks concerned with working remotely? That's a good question.
There are different concerns. So it's an interesting question, and when you combine it with businesses that are thinking of it as a cost savings by not owning the equipment that you're using to work remotely, so you have unprotected devices like if that are out there. There is a greater risk. There are ways to mitigate that. By using something called mobile device management, where even though your employee owns the device, you have the right to manage a portion of it, and you keep all the corporate data on that portion of it. And also the use of VPNs and other things like that. The public internet is a risk in general.
I'm sure you've had a lot of questions about that lately with all the changes that we've had.
Yeah, we're working with a lot of our our clients on changes because the perception is, and I think, I think it's almost universal, that although people will start returning to work, there'll be a contingent of people that will be always working, or at least part-time, from remote areas. But that's all part of your risk assessment, and there are ways to lower the risk.
This has been so informative, but I wanted to, before I let you go, I would love for you to give us a little insider jewel. Maybe something that you would tell your friends or your family, something that you could say to all of our attendees here today as something they should really keep in mind. What would that be?
I mean, for personal, I would, people complain about multi-factor authentication. I would make sure you use multi-factor authentication in all of your important transactions with your banks and with anything that involves money or reputation. That would be the first thing. For your business, it's educating on top of those kind of things. It's not the shortest link into your network is through someone opening the door and letting someone in, and that's basically what you're trying not to do by educating your employees on how the hackers are trying to get in.
Just simple thing, but so powerful.
Yep.
For sure. So I want to encourage all of our attendees to take advantage of the wonderful offer that Steve gave to you for doing a dark web scan. And I just shared your contact information again with everyone in the chat. I want everyone to know we'll also be sending out an email tomorrow that will include this contact information as well. So don't delay, reach out. We'll also share with you a recording. This has been recorded, so we'll share that with you as well, so you can watch it again. You could share it with your company. You could share it with your associates, your community. We sure encourage you to do so. And I want to thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for your generosity of information and giving us a path forward in dealing with cybersecurity, which is a true threat to all of our businesses today.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of our attendees for spending some of your afternoon with us today. We appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.